Okay, so in this question, I'm taking the limit as x goes to 5 of this function. So if you plug in 5, you could just try plugging in 5. That's not going to work, but let me show you. If you plug in 5, basically you're going to get, taking before that, it's going to be 0 over 0, which is unclear, which means we got to try something else. So what should we do? Well, first thing you want to notice on this problem is that these guys both have a 4 in common. It's led by a negative, so take out a negative 4. And what does that leave on the inside? X minus 5. Makes sense because minus 4 times x is minus 4x, and minus 4 times minus 5, two negatives, goes back to plus 20. So whenever you have two things in common, factor it out. Okay, so where does that bring us? That brings us to the limit. Oh, in fact, let me move it over a little bit. So the limit as x goes to 5 of the square root of x squared plus 24 minus 7 over minus 4 x minus 5. And I'm going to take that minus 4, oops, just slide it out to the front like this, 1 over minus 4. Because it doesn't have an x in it. So you can just remove it. It just makes life easier just to have that thing out of the way. Anything that doesn't have an x that's multiplied, right? That's minus 4 times, it's multiplied amount. Just move it to the front. It's just multiplied the front. Because everything comes after the limit is going to be for x to plug in, and that doesn't have an x, so it doesn't matter. Okay, now what do you want to do? What's got to jump off the screen for you is that square root. Whenever you see a square root, so whenever you have a root plus or minus a, whenever you have that, you want to multiply top and bottom, oops, bottom, by what's called the conjugate. And what that means is opposite sign in the middle. So you want to multiply, let me change my color here, by square root of x squared plus 24 plus 7, and then same thing on the bottom. Oops. X squared plus 24 plus 7. You see how the minus 7 became plus? So that's what I mean by opposite sign in the middle. So whenever you have a square root added or subtracted with another number, square root added or subtracted with another number, multiply top and bottom of the fraction by the same thing. These can't be different. You can't put plus here and minus there or something like that. It's got to be the same thing, right? Whenever we mess with a fraction, we have to do the same thing top and bottom so we don't change the value of the fraction. Otherwise, we would totally change its value. We're not changing the value, we're just changing the way it looks. So I multiply top and bottom by the opposite sign in the middle. Now, what I'm going to do is let me write one more note here. Multiply only the opposites. In other words, put parentheses here. So I'm going to multiply the top. So let me bring this down. So minus 1/4 limit. X goes to 5. Okay. I'm going to multiply the top because you see how this and this are opposites. Opposites, that's what we mean. On the bottom, I'm not going to multiply them. In fact, I'm just going to bring it down unchanged. Now you might wonder, well, how do you know you're supposed to do that? Why are you supposed to do that? Well, there's no official requirement here. In other words, anytime we want, we can multiply things or just leave them set. All I'm saying is I'm leaving the bottom sit. It's because I know something nice will happen. So I'm going to leave the bottom just sit. Could you multiply out the bottom? You could, but it'll be easier not to. I just know something that's going to happen. I'm only going to multiply the top because those have the opposite. Now, don't say to yourself, "Oh, it's always the top." No, no. Sometimes that stuff's on the bottom. It's whoever has the opposite. See how the two tops have opposites. So here we go. Right? You know what I mean? This is exactly the same as that, except there are opposite signs in the middle. So here we go. So this whole piece, let me change my color here. And this whole piece is going to go to that whole piece. And that just gets rid of the root. Are you good with that? Do you know, like let me show you an example. Like, what's the root of 3 times the root of 3? Well, it's the root of 9, which is what? Plane 3. See how two roots make one plane whatever without the root anymore? See how that works? Like root 3 is root 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. So whenever you have two things that match in roots and they're multiplied, the answer is just one of those things regular without a root, outside the root. It gets rid of the root, right? So root of x squared plus 24 times root of x plus squared plus 24 is a one plane, x squared plus 24, no more root, plus, and then it goes to the 7. So that's 7 root of x squared plus 24. I should make that neater. I did know. Here we go. Okay, now he's done. Now it's the other guy's turn. This guy's going to go to both, right? They take turns. First to both, he's done. Second to both. That'll be minus 7 root of x squared plus 24. Then minus 7 times plus 7, minus 49. Okay, so now do you see the nice thing that happens up top? This, whoops, this and this cancel. Do you see why we used one? We used the opposite sign in the middle. We had a minus, so we used the plus because then you get one positive the root, one negative the root, and the roots are gone. So that's really nice. And so now that brings us to minus 1/4. Limit as x goes to 5. What do we have left? We have x squared plus 24 minus 49 on the bottom. Nothing's much has changed on the bottom. Same as it was. Like so. Okay. So now what's going to go on? Well, let's combine these. What are these? What's 24 minus 49? It's minus 25. So that top becomes x squared minus 25. And you know what you can do with x squared minus 25? It's x minus 5, x plus 5. Because x times x in the front will make x squared, 5 times 5, and one negative 5, one positive 5 will make negative 25. So this becomes, we're almost there. I know it's been a long one. This becomes on the top, this x squared minus 25 becomes x minus 5, x plus 5. And the bottom has been waiting patiently. X minus 5. Now you probably can see why we waited and left the bottom as it was. Boy, let me see here. My pen's dying. There we go. X squared plus 24 plus 7. Okay, now these guys cancel. That's beautiful. So limit x goes to 5 of x plus 5 on the bottom. Right, plus 24 plus 7. All right, last step. X goes to 5. Now you can put in the 5, put in the 5, and it'll work. It won't be 0 over 0. See how right here, the 5 and the 5, that would have made 0 over 0. Those were the problem. That's all that work was to get rid of those pieces because they were causing the problem. Now we can plug in the 5. Minus 1/4 is still in the front. Um, Now plug in the 5. This is 5 plus 5, 10. On the bottom, this is the square root of 5 squared, 25 plus 24 plus 7. It's not 0 over 0 anymore. So now it's minus 1/4 times 10 over square root of 49. This makes 49 plus 7. We are so close. Times 10 over 7 plus 7. And that's minus 1/4 times 10 over 14. And that is, multiply the top times the top. 10, oh, here, let me simplify that. 10 over 4 times 14, 56, bottom times bottom. You can reduce that fraction if you want to keep playing with this thing. Divide by 2, top and bottom, minus 5/28. Whew. There we go. Was that the answer they had up there? Yeah, minus 5/28. There we go. Let's recap. We did a lot of steps there, a lot of algebra. This is what is involved in learning calculus, is all this algebra. So from the beginning, we noticed the denominator, they both had a 4 in common. So we factored out the 4, the minus 4, and then we put the minus 1/4, just put it to the front because it doesn't have an x in it. It doesn't need to be after the x. Then we said, okay, we got a root. That's the major thing to know. So we got a root. Whenever you got a root added or subtracted to something, it's got to be a root added or subtracted to something. You multiply top and bottom by the conjugate, which means opposite sign in the middle. So I took this whole thing and I put the opposite sign in the middle, same thing, top and bottom. And you only multiply the opposites. So multiply the top because this is where we have opposites. So I did boom and boom and boom and boom. Got these 4 terms. These canceled because that's why I used opposites, 1 plus 1 minus. Then we have x squared plus 24 minus 49. That made x squared minus 25. That factored x minus 5x plus 5. Brought it down to here. These canceled. X plus 5 over this. Then we could finally let x go to 5. Put in 5, put in 5. Got this. Simplified the numbers. Minus 5/28. And so there we go.